Can we create global citizens? Well, maybe they already are. We're going to talk with Britt Yamamoto from iLEAP tonight on Rainmakers. Welcome, Britt.
Thank you for having me.
So global citizens, you're not really creating them, you're just helping them get even smarter, is that it?
Or perhaps even just helping them to be connected to more people, I think. A lot of the people that we work with in our programs are already plenty smart, I think. And perhaps just they're not as visible to so many people around the world.
All right, well, tell us about iLEAP. You're the founder.
Yes.
And executive director.
Yes. And
you got this program that has been growing and growing and have people coming from all around the world right here to iLEAP.
Yes, here in Seattle. So basically we're an international leadership training organization. Our mission is to renew and inspire social leaders and global citizens through integrated leadership programs that ignite hope and transformation in the world. And sort of the applied side of that is that people come here to Seattle. We have different programs that range in length from 2 weeks to 3 months. And they go through, depending on the program, a varied kind of leadership training that involves them doing a lot of personal reflection and development, but also a lot of skills building and connecting to the community and telling their story. And so over the last 5 years, we've seen ourselves grow quite significantly from being a very small startup nonprofit to being one that we'd like to believe is now sort of in it for the long haul.
I love your vision, and I got to read the vision here. The iLEAP vision is a worldwide community of interlinked global citizens and innovative organizations working together to realize our fullest potential and to celebrate our common humanity. So, while I love it, explain it.
It's a vision, Stan. It's supposed to be intangible. Well, you know, our approach to this work, and of course there's a number of leadership training programs out there, and a number of programs that really focus on global citizenship and building global community. But ours is really trying to maintain both that short-term focus and the long-term vision of, you know, when people come together and they experience these say training programs here in Seattle, what's that actually leading toward? And a lot of our structure of our curriculum is focused on partnership building. And so asking hard questions like, you know, what's the mutual benefit here? It's not, you know, a number of our participants come from grassroots communities in Asia, Africa, Latin America. And when they come here, we really put them in a position of both as learner but also as teacher. And we want that teaching opportunity to help build sort of new forms of relationships, ones that aren't focused on what can be provided to so-called developing communities, but how can those connections build new ways of partnering? And what we're finding now is that a number of people are really hungering for those kinds of connections, where it's about connecting at the person level, but also being in a partnership around creating change. And so it's a vision that to some degree we're finding to be already a reality, where you know, if sort of 20th century approach to partnership building is very institution to institution, 21st century approach to partnership, whether it's aided by social media or other things, is very much around that personal connection. And I think we see that in a lot of forms of philanthropy and development and so on. And so I think the nature of our approach to doing leadership training and development, rooted in partnership and collaboration, is trying to create that new world.
You know, and I was on the website preparing for the show, and I saw quite a few different countries where participants in the program. I saw certainly several continents. How many different countries have people been from?
Right now I believe it's about 20 countries, from Africa, Asia, and
do they all live in your house with you?
In the beginning they actually almost did. But now they live across the Seattle community, and actually in homestays, and the homestay part of our program is actually a very important part of the learning that happens, and as you know, actually speaks to really the global citizenship part of our mission, where a homestay family actually contributes a great deal to the learning and transformation of the social leaders who come here to Seattle, because they provide this, literally provide this haven for them to learn and grow and be challenged and experience American culture in a very different way.
When I hear of a leadership training program, I'm thinking of you know, some people who are on their way to the top inside a government somewhere. That's not necessarily the kinds of people who you're attracting, though, is it?
Correct, correct. Well, one of the things that we really start with when we talk about leadership is we differentiate between positional leadership, which I think often we associate with forms of power and other titled positions.
Hierarchical.
And we differentiate that from leadership as more of a quality that anyone can exhibit irrespective of that position. And so at the same time, the people that often join our programs are leaders in their organizations, but these organizations themselves may be a very small staff, if any paid staff at all. Very grassroots, working in and with community. But, and this is a really important part that helps us to sort of find the people that we work with, and they find us too, is that they are very effective in creating change. And they've demonstrated their leadership on multiple levels, and they're touching hundreds, if not thousands, of lives. And so the leaders that we find are people that are not the ones who have the titles, even though many of them have those titles, but they're the ones that people in the community are really looking to, and that are really driving change.
What kind of change are you trying to drive? Or is it you that's driving the change?
Well, that's actually a very good question and a very good differentiation, I think. You know, at one point in my life, in sort of pre-iLEAP, I was very involved in food and agriculture issues, and particularly around organic and sustainable agriculture, and myself being very involved with working towards grassroots development and change. And at that time, I think it was more around the visible change, or the actual the outcome. Maybe,
yes, see what we did,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. And through a series of perhaps failures and learnings and humbling opportunities.
Before we go any further,
Sure.
I got to tell you, we right here at Rainmakers look at failures and we call them successes yet to be. Is that okay?
Absolutely. And you know, sort of we at iLEAP see the failure as just a wonderful opportunity to learn and grow and expand. And so I believe embracing failure is, you know, it's even just reframing what we think about when we say failure. Absolutely. But I really appreciate that. But in that earlier time, realizing that you know, there's something to be said about the process in which both the individual experiences change and growth and development, and how that then connects to social transformation. And to some degree, you know, I think for many of the people that we work with, and I think for iLEAP, the world that we want to live in has greater forms of equity and friendship and the qualities that are more human, I think, that we all really strive for, that at the same time aren't universal, but but I think it's that process of finding those connecting points that offers, at least in my own experience and working with the hundreds of people that we've worked with thus far, presents an incredible hope and inspiration for the future.
Was there a moment when you were working in organic food and agriculture in the past, was there a moment that said to you, you know, there's something else out there that ultimately became iLEAP?
Yeah, you know, I think, so anybody who's ever been involved in agriculture knows that it's thankless and tireless. You never have enough energy to do what you need to do. And it's, at the same time, it's very fulfilling. And so you're sort of constantly in this dual tensions of exhaustion and feeling very fulfilled. And so I met a number of other people who were also in that same place, and finding that, you know, the good work and the so-called good fight are important. But at the same time, if people burn out and people, those who are leading this work, are not able to renew themselves and also to find a community of support to advance that work, the work won't happen, and we'll just continue to churn out people who sort of delve into cynicism. And so that was in many ways one of the strongest impetuses for creating iLEAP, which was there are these incredible needs in the world, these incredible issues that so many people are working on, and such inspiring people, whether they're here in Seattle or in Kenya or wherever they might be in the world. And at the same time, we're human, and while we have this incredible reserve for capacity to inspire and lead, we get tired and we can burn out. And so it was sort of with the spirit of what would it look like to create a global development leadership training experience that both valued the technical and the applied, but also gave a lot of space to this personal transformation and being able to create a space for people to retreat, but also re-engage. Yeah.
Well, I can see how reinvigorating this must be for you, because you're around all of these people who actually, they're already successes, aren't they?
Yes.
So why do they need iLEAP? What do they get out of it?
Well, it's a lot like I was just saying, you know. I can give you an example. One of our fellows last year in 2011, a woman from El Salvador, incredible leader working on issues related to gang violence and you know, a lot of the youth violence that's happening now, not only in El Salvador but throughout Central America. Very incredibly well respected in her community and really throughout the region. Came to our program last year, and the thing that she really needed at that time was not more technical skill about how to be a better leader or how to write a business plan or do any of these things, but really a place to be able to re-inspire herself about why was she doing this work in the first place. So we often talk about in iLEAP about the gap that sometimes grows in social leaders between who they are and what they do. The what they do becomes very prominent because of any number of inspiring things, and we often focus on the what they do. And through that process, they often lose the anchor point of who they are, remarkably so. And you know, I've only come to fully believe this because I've worked with enough people now to see that, and even just in myself. So it's that, to some degree, it's that reconnecting. It's closing that gap between the who you are and what you do. And so with this woman from El Salvador, she found this through this 3-month opportunity to go through our fellowship program of course, learning all these new things, developing new partnerships, but really finding this space to be able to reconnect with that place. And so as a result of that, she went back to El Salvador and created a new department, basically, in her organization that was focused on creating partnerships, international partnerships that were sort of really focused on the integrity of that place, I think. When you talk to her now, it's really that part of it that really she found the renewal of being able to refine that. You
got fellows right now from 20 different countries. How do they find out about iLEAP?
Well, and this is all really consistent with the vision that you mentioned earlier about creating this worldwide community. So there's different ways we do that. One of the things we really emphasize, and I think speaks to the very rich global development sector here in Seattle, is that we look to actually partner with other organizations here in Seattle that have global development operations that have staff members in their countries. So that's a very big part. And so we have, actually in this fellowship, we have 4 women who come through these partner organizations here in Seattle. We also work with different regions, and we have regional coordinators that help us to basically build partnerships with other well-respected organizations. So in Central America, we work with some different funds and women's groups that go out there and really get our, when we have an open application, get that news out to people. And we found, just like with any business endeavor, that referrals are the best and most reliable things. And so as a result of that, we found just some of the most remarkable people that that we wouldn't find with just sort of generic advertising.
More women than men?
Absolutely. Our focus to this point in all of in both our international fellowship and then our social innovation forum have been on women and women's leadership. This current group of fellows is actually 90% women. We have actually the sort of enviable position of sort of looking for more gender equity from men. When I see the women leaders that we're working with right now and hear and understand truly the impact that they're having in their countries and their communities, but then I hear the stories of that many more women that are out there doing this work that are, as I mentioned earlier, just maybe not visible. And we often speak maybe in the hypothetical about supporting women's leadership, but the reality is that there are so many women out there that are creating, leading, inspiring, and doing things that everyone can learn from, whether you're working in Somalia or Seattle. I think it's very inspirational. If
somebody is watching this online in Somalia, take us through a day in the life of a fellow, someone who's in the program.
So they wake up in their homestay, where they experience what it's like to be in an American household in the morning, which often means people running around and trying to slap together some form of lunch that can accompany them to the office. Then, like so many Seattleites, they hop on the bus and take the bus to iLEAP and take the bus to our offices. We're fortunate enough to have a very beautiful space that allows for a lot of learning and feels like a home. It's 4,400 square feet, which is quite a big home.
Yeah, big home.
But is the place where we do a lot of our seminars. So they would come in the morning. We would convene as a full group, check in, sort of how are people doing this morning, and then typically jump into a seminar. And that seminar might be focused on partnership building or global philanthropy or leadership development.
Are you teaching fundraising, or are you just kind of, what are you?
It depends. We could be focusing on, so my background is, so my academic background is in the social sciences, and so sometimes it's hard for me to fully take off an academic hat, so there might be opportunities for me to be a little bit more pedagogical than otherwise. So there is definitely content, and a lot of content that we work with, but it's much more seminar-like than sort of lecture-based download kind of thing.
Yeah. Are you teaching people from Somalia about Central America and people from Central America about Asia? Is that what happens?
Well, it often that just emerges because of the people that are in the program, and this is really where the rich learning happens. I think for myself, I see it as just seeding a conversation, and then what comes around that as people from East Africa and South Asia and Central America come together and talk about their experiences of, say, women's leadership, and or just leading an organization, for example. We had an exercise the other day where one of our fellows from Kenya, we introduced this methodology of basically mapping a systematic challenge, and everybody contributed their perspective to that and really helped this Kenyan fellow work her way through to some greater clarity of how to deal with a situation of challenging with an organizational decision. And what was so beautiful about it is that it was actually a real-time thing that within the next 2 days was something that she was confronting. And that conversation helped her to resolve that in a very positive way. So it's those kinds of cross-cultural group learning that really, I mean, I don't know anywhere else where that happens because of just the richness of the people in the room.
What are some of the toughest, surprising problems that you have found that fellows have presented you with?
Well, I could bring one up from just today. Just to sort of bring it a very...
Well, might as well be recent.
Yeah, it's, and just to give you an idea about the reality of and how we see our work, where it's not just, it's trying to hold hold oppositional forces and not try to say, well, everything's okay, we don't have to worry about the challenges in the world, and also not to slip into the total sort of difficulties of what exists. But one of our fellows right now is from Central America, and one of these countries is experiencing incredible instability right now, and as a result of that, a lot of they recently elected a military president who was formerly from a period of that country's past that was very violent. And so things have changed in the country, even just in the last few months, but certainly over the last year or so, where now a lot of community-based organizations are experiencing surveillance and are experiencing a lot of both sort of understated and overt threats to their safety. Oh. And so just in the last week, this particular fellow has experienced, you know, all of our fellows stay in touch with their organizations because they're often the leaders and the founders, was told by her staff that there was some things happening that were indicating that they were being surveilled, that there were some clear threats being directed at the safety of the people on the staff, and you know, that's a very real thing, and so much to the degree where you notice I'm not mentioning the country or
Sure.
trying to call too much attention to it, because we really had to be mindful of just even the information that was on our website. So we actually took down some of the information. We are very careful with social media because the way that spreads out too. And this is a very real thing that not just this one fellow, but many of our fellows face with the challenges of both being away from their work, and also just the real challenges that they face in their work. And so as an organization, they're really focused on not only the now and the training that we're doing, but the long-term relationship building and building networks of mutual support. What does that look like when we're talking about these incredible threats to human safety and well-being?
Well, that's definitely is a real issue. And of course, now I'm going to ask you a completely fair question. Who's been your favorite fellow?
Who's been my favorite fellow? Well, this is being broadcast in multiple places, so I can't pick any favorites too specifically. But I can tell you that the stories of fellows going back, of taking this experience, and really that's where it needs to make a difference for iLEAP. It's not really about the 3 months that they're here. It's about the 3 years and the long view that they're taking when they go back into their communities, right? And so hearing stories about fellows going back and building new leadership training programs that blend not only content but also personal development and transformation, that build new partnerships that bring hundreds of thousands of new dollars into their communities to build schools and other forms of infrastructure, to fellows that go back and create new organizations that focus on women and girls, is somewhat unique in what we commit to. And so the commencement of when they sort of graduate from the program, we try to really honor as a true commencement to a relationship. And so as a result of that, we hear from them all the time. I think social media has a way of making that a little bit easier. Yeah. But we hear from them all the time of what they're learning, what their challenges are, what new opportunities are presenting themselves.
What I'm hearing from you, though, is something that's could be Peace Corps, could be a university, could be this kind of program or that kind of program. So what's unique about iLEAP?
Well, it's that we're trying to really blend a lot of things. It's not just the content-based learning, which is so important, right? It's not just the exposing people to a new experience, say like a study tour or something like that you often see. And it's not just saying to somebody who you are matters, and creating space to explore that also matters. It's trying to put all those together, because what we believe is that the way in which Well, number one, we believe that the issues in the world are, it's going to be social leaders, and particularly the next generation of social leaders that do that. It's not going to be me, maybe me and my community, but it's going to be these remarkable people all over the world. And so what can we do to help ignite and amplify the impact that they're having? And what we believe the best way to do that is through an integrated approach that brings in these different pieces, the content and the technical, the personal development, the new connections, and puts them together in a curriculum that values all of that. And so I think that that's really what makes iLEAP unique, is that we look at leadership training not as a technical endeavor, but one that's really truly transformational, because we believe when that transformation happens for them during the program, it has incredible exponential ripple effect.
Have you found that some of the fellows from a certain class are staying in contact with each other? I guess social media makes it a little easier these days.
Absolutely, and that's part of our vision too, is that we want to help and maintain those networks. And that's actually really what's exciting for us, and where we see our next frontier is how we can support our graduates to continue to build the conditions to advance their leadership, and also work with more leaders in their countries and their regions. And we're seeing that happening in East Africa right now, in Central America, and in East Asia. So it's very exciting.
We only have a minute left, and gosh, you know, we talked a little bit about this. We could talk for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, something that you touched on earlier that was about gender equity, and I had this wonderful opportunity to talk with Sir Fazli Abed of BRAC, and he talked about the next Millennium Development Goals are likely to have gender equity as part of it. Why is it that with half the population being women, we still have this problem in the world of men dominating women? In 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, right. Well, that's very complicated. I think that I don't have the answer to that, but I feel very confident that the women that we're working with do. And the way that they're approaching that work is not only addressing immediate issues, but it's working on creating and shifting the cultural structures that help to maintain those power dynamics and make them legitimate. And so I feel very hopeful, because I see the deconstruction of those cultural forms that are, I think, continuing to perpetuate those forms of inequality starting to come down. And so
all of it happening right there at iLEAP.
Or around the world.
All right, Britt Yamamoto, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Dan.